Hello, welcome to Creative Catchup,
a podcast where myself, Natasha Newton,
artist and illustrator, and me, Mel Chadwick,
illustrator and designer, will be chatting about running a creative business.
Each episode we'll be diving into a different topic that has come up in our own creative practice.
We'll be sharing our experiences, both the ups and downs, struggles and successes,
and hopefully give some advice that you'll also find useful.
Join us for episode 8 as we chat about
running workshops and teaching both in person
and online.
Hi Natasha.
Hi Mel.
So today we're going to be talking about teaching and teaching our art to others. But I think you, Natasha, are probably going to ask me questions about this.
Yeah, I think on this topic, you're much more experienced than I am. So I think we're going to turn it around today, and I'm actually going to be asking you most of the questions, and you're going to be sharing all of your experiences with us.
Yeah, go for it. I'm ready.
Okay, so I have a few questions for you. I think we'll start with if you could tell us the different ways in which you teach art so we can get an idea of all of the different routes we could take if we wanted to embark on this.
Brilliant. Okay, so I teach a number of different ways, different classes. So I run something I call sketch walks. So they are basically taking a small group of people around. In my case, it's Porthleven or Mullion Cove. We are looking at our surroundings and we're drawing what's in front of us, and we're walking at the same time. Another kind of workshop I do is sketchbook workshops, where we just go through a series of themes, and each week we'll look at that theme in depth, and I will share ideas as to how you can capture a subject, mostly drawing from life, drawing from what's in front of you. It's very different to just drawing from a photo, and it kind of really helps you learn about what's in front of you and how to draw and capture it. I've also have been working with a flower shop over the last year and have been running workshops within her shop in Porthleven. It's actually called In Bloom. It's a beautiful flower shop. I'm hoping that we may be able to start that again soon if we have a limited number of people. But the idea was that I would run the workshop in the space, and the subject that we would be looking at would be flower related, because there are flowers all around you. You've got inspiration on tap. And so we thought actually that would be a really good thing to pair up and do something together. Then also teach private classes, so like one-to-one, and that's until the lockdown that would have been in person, and then like small group classes as well. Since the lockdown, I've been doing Zoom classes, and that's taken my workshops on a whole different level, and getting used to teaching through a screen. It's very different to teaching when the person is in front of you. So I've been doing something called sketching parties. I will supply all the subjects. I have 2 camera setups, and I give them lots of timed exercises, warm-ups, just getting people relaxed and drawing. And it's very fun as well. So I've just actually finished after doing it for, I think I ran it for about 15 weeks straight.
Wow.
So since the lockdown started, I just ran this class.
I suppose that was really good for people as well, to help them feel a little bit less alone and more connected with other people during lockdown.
Yeah, and also what was really nice was that I would get families all booking on. So I would get, obviously it was one screen for them, but I would have the whole family come together and draw together. And I had messages from folks saying, I've never done that before, not with all my family.
Wow.
That was really lovely. Like they were able to draw with their kids or even their partner. And it was just so nice to receive messages saying, I've never done that before, and we all really enjoyed it. And it just shows how drawing, I think, is for anyone who wants to give it a go. You don't have to be a master at it or a professional. You can just be someone who wants to see something in a different way or try a different skill. So that's, I would say, was my approach with teaching, is that I try to really say it's for everyone. Drawing is for everyone. There shouldn't be a barrier that stops you from creating or putting pen to paper.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message. And my mum recently has started sketching a little bit.
Oh, brilliant.
And I really like what she's doing, but she's very critical of herself at the moment, which I think we all are when we first start. Well, it continues.
Yeah.
I think we're often critical anyway, but yeah, especially when you first start. But yeah, I'm trying to tell her that, we all had to start somewhere once.
Yeah.
And we all went through that stage. And if you just continue on, you will actually find so much joy in it, I think. And I think this is the lovely thing about teaching, is that you are actually spreading that joy of art to other people and helping them to feel that they can do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're in a group of people, and a lot of them perhaps, they aren't professional artists, it makes you feel a little bit braver as well, doesn't it? Because you're all doing it together.
Yeah. I sometimes work with organisations or gardens. A year ago I was working with Heligan Garden, which involved leading a group around the garden, and we drew all the different flowers and objects that we saw around the garden. It was just a really nice way to connect with nature and with what was in front of us. Kind of marries up so well with being in a garden space, because, when you're in a garden, you just want to look at everything around you. Well, just imagine taking a sketchbook with you. You'll enjoy it even more because you're able to record what's in front of you and you're able to draw the shapes and...
Yeah, and you're really looking, aren't you? When
really
you're
looking.
Painting or drawing, you're really looking. Yeah,
and you're slowing yourself down. And that is a real benefit of sketching and sketching what's in front of you.
Yeah, so I think in a way this is becoming even more important in this day and age to do something like this, because all of our lives are so hectic and we're not really taking that time to just stop and look.
Yeah, and because you are looking intently at what's in front of you, it almost then switches off the brain, from all of those thoughts that you might have been thinking about. It switches it off because you are so focused on what's in front of you.
It does. I find art is so useful for that. Yeah, if you have one of those brains where, everything is whizzing around constantly and you're overthinking things, if you really get into painting or drawing, you're just thinking about that. And that's fantastic. So when and why did you start offering workshops and lessons? What made you decide to do it?
I graduated from uni and then moved back to Wales, and I took an evening course. It was called Education and Training. It was called an ETO 1 course, and it was basically preparing me for teaching adults. It was like just a little bit of info and help in how to organise, lesson planning and what your aims and objectives are. So that was really good to actually just have a little bit of grounding. Although naturally, I've always been good at telling people what to do. I think not in a really bossy way, although if you talk to my younger siblings, they might disagree with that. But I've always been like, the one to take the initiative with my brothers and sisters, because I've been the eldest child. I remember I used to take them into the shed that we had and teach them in that environment, which is very strange at the age of 7 or 8.
So maybe you were always meant to be doing this then.
Well, I think it's also my parents. My mum has been a college professor, and my dad has been a teacher all his life.
Oh, I see. It's in your blood.
Yeah, he was a headmaster as well. And
was he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. So I've been brought up in a home of teachers, and they actually thought that I would become a teacher, but I always felt I wanted to do art. So
you're marrying both worlds then. You're marrying the art world with the teaching world now. And it seems like it's something that you were almost born to do in a way.
Well,
doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes you rebel against those kind of things, but
yeah,
I definitely now I do realise actually if I can do it, then I need to do it. We moved from where we were in Wales, we moved to Hong Kong, and that was a massive move for me and my husband. But whilst I was there, the first 6 months I wasn't allowed to do anything because of the dependent visa that I was on. And then the rules changed, which meant that I could. And I kind of stumbled across this art centre called Chameleon Art Workshop, which is run by an expat from the UK. She's still out there. Her name's Elle McCall. She took me on as one of her teachers for her art school. And we used to go into international schools after school time and teach them a range of art subjects. And that was a really fun introduction to actually teaching art in a school, but not with all of the baggage that sometimes comes with having to work to a curriculum. It was just really lovely to be able to do that, and I really benefited from that experience. I then also trained as a kinder music teacher as well whilst I was there, and then started teaching music to babies. Basically, we had babies up to the age of 5. It was called Kinder Music by Catherine, run by Catherine, or Kate. She was a lovely, lovely teacher. She still is a lovely person. She really was so positive in the way that she would teach, and I really learnt so much from her because she was always smiling. She had this kind of confidence that you were really attracted to when she was teaching, and you just loved being with her, and you could see all the kids just going, wow. It was that positiveness which I could see was changing and transforming, lives. Maybe I thought that you had to be really strict, or you had to be, quite not negative, but I just hadn't really experienced this positivity that she had when she was teaching.
She sounds like a fantastic teacher.
Yeah, and I learned a lot through her. So when we eventually moved from Hong Kong and we went to Aberdeen, and that's where I set up art classes for kids. And I started teaching primary age after school. And I really enjoyed that time. I was able to use the church that we were at. They had a really modern building, and it was ideally placed. It was actually opposite the primary school. I rented the building and kind of advertised it locally. And I used to get really classes of, 6 or 7 kids coming along twice a week or so to learn about art. And we did a whole range of things. It wasn't just drawing. We did painting, we did clay work, we did printmaking. So we looked at monoprinting and screen printing and creating textures. We used acrylic paint, we used watercolour, we got them painting on canvases. We did wood. We just did so many different things, because I just think as a child, if a teacher brings you pencils or paints, you normally think, oh, I want to have a go at the paints. Yeah, it was just really nice to be able to open up them to a whole world of art rather than just maybe one way that they might have known. And it's amazing the pieces that they created from those sessions.
Yeah, that must be very rewarding to do that. So this really has been something that you've been doing for years then.
Well, it's interesting because I had a little bit of a break. So I'll just finish with the Aberdeen one. I also did art parties, and then I also started moving into adults. So there was Aberdeen was or is like quite an international port. It's got a big oil industry there. And so there were lots of oil companies. And I think I was approached by someone who said, do you think you could bring your art classes into this oil environment? And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so basically what I ended up doing was running courses, after work courses, going into the oil companies and running classes for them in drawing and art, and we did clay as well. So very similar to like the kids' primary.
Yeah.
But then bringing it into an adult environment. And it was amazing because these adults, hadn't maybe done art for years, but just loved being able to do something that was so different to their daily grind.
Yeah, what a great idea. I never even knew things like this existed. So there are so many different ways in which to teach art, aren't there, really? Even ways you don't think of, like I wouldn't have thought that after work art classes for a company were even a thing.
I guess it's just trying it out, isn't it? And giving it a go, seeing if it works and seeing what the response is. I think it makes a lot of sense too, because if you know that you're straight after work, you've got maybe a chance to just kind of decompress and do something else, with your work colleagues. Maybe that's actually quite nice as well, because you see them in a different light, maybe.
Yes, yeah, that's quite important.
Then it's probably quite a nice switching off time. So after Aberdeen, we moved down to Cornwall and into Falmouth.
You get around, don't you, Mel?
And I did one kind of course of zine making at Truro College, an evening course, which was all right. But then I just stopped teaching then. I kind of felt I needed to concentrate really on my practice, and I wanted to that was when I was actually shifting more into illustration. That kind of side of it just came to a natural end. And then for the next 6 years, I didn't do any teaching.
Yeah, you had a big break then, didn't you?
A big break. And then basically we were moving, and you've probably heard this in another episode. We moved from Falmouth to Porthleven. And that's when I started to see what was around me, and my kind of urge to keep a sketchbook and wanted to draw everything around me. And that started igniting passion for creating in my sketchbook. And then after I had been sketching for about 6 months, I then thought, this would make a really nice activity. And that's when I thought, I think I'm going to try offering these as sketch walks around this area.
And how did you go about doing that? How did you advertise them?
So people had seen me, I would sketch in my sketchbook and hold up the place that I'd sketched in front of the actual place. And I seemed to get quite a big engagement because people really liked
They really like that, don't they?
Yeah.
I've noticed when other people do this, when they hold the sketchbook up against the scene they've just sketched, people really seem to engage with those posts.
They do.
Yeah.
And I just started sharing about it. But I was trying to make a book from my sketches that I've been doing in Porthleven. And so because I had been trying to engage people with that, there was a natural interest in what I was doing. And so I was beginning to get people asking, well, do you do workshops, that kind of thing? So there was beginning to get a little bit of momentum through that. And it was actually a hard one because I was like, how do I tell people about these? How do I get the word out there? And I think Facebook actually, with their events, that actually really did help, because obviously friends of friends can maybe see the events. And so I advertised a little bit on Facebook, as in I just made some events with the dates and times of the sketch walk. And then obviously put it on my shop online. And then once one person booked on, and I think I just had one person book on, I was like, woohoo. And I thought, well, I'm going to run it for one person, because that's fine. I've just got to start doing them. And then once... Yeah,
it gives you some practice in doing it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So good old Ingrid. I think Ingrid was my first customer.
Shout out to Ingrid.
Yeah, she was one of my first people, and she was lovely. And then you're able to then start taking photos, of people doing your sketch walks, and then share that, and then you just start to see.
And then the ball starts rolling.
Exactly, and you get reviews. And then I also started advertising on selling it through Eventbrite and also Airbnb experiences. So when people...
that's a good idea.
When people book into the properties that are in the area, experiences should show up. Sometimes they don't always show up, but they should show up. And because of that, you've then got an organic connection, And then people are then thinking, oh, I'd quite like to do that or do one of those. So
yeah,
that's a long roundabout way of where I am now.
So we're up to the present day now.
Yes.
And this has become a large part of what you do. And would you recommend it to people? Would you say that this is a good side income?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you have to remember that teaching is all about how you can facilitate, how you can encourage people to learn and pick up new skills. You just have to have the right mindset for teaching, I think. And obviously not think about yourself so much, because sometimes I find that if I think about myself too much, I get in the way. And I mean that, like, if I'm over worrying about how I'm going to come across or how I'm going to say things, and in a way, because I'm thinking about that so much, I'm actually then not thinking about the people that are in front of me. And all I have to do then is actually just serve the people in front of me and I'll be fine.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. So what would you say is your favourite thing about teaching?
I think it is seeing people grasp what you're talking about, but also seeing them enjoy it and get a lot of enjoyment from it.
That must be very rewarding, yeah.
If I can see that and I can see them actually enjoying what they're doing, I feel like I've done the job that I need to do.
So what have you learned through teaching others?
So, going back to what I said before, being confident, I've learned that it's more about them, not about me. Also, my mindset is very important, that I need to go in with it with positive mindset, not a negative mindset, because that's the most important thing. Is as a teacher, you are modelling the mindset that your students, they'll pick up on. So if you're being quite negative about, things that you're doing, or even like saying little comments like, oh no, that's not how it should look, or that's not quite right, they'll pick up on that and then start saying that to themselves. So if there is a negativity in the atmosphere, and I'm not talking like a really negative vibe, but if people are coming into the class and they're already saying, oh, well, I can't draw, or I haven't drawn for a long time, or all I do is stick men and they all look rubbish, I almost have to dismantle that negativity. I have to kind of give a positive push to say, I don't want that in this environment, because if you will defeat yourself before you've even started, you've defeated yourself. So I try to make sure we have an environment of just openness to what we're doing, and that it doesn't matter if what you create, you don't like it, that's okay, because it's part of your process. Trying to be that encouraging voice, because they will have so many negative voices that you might not even hear, but they're maybe saying that to themselves as they're drawing, that you're having to almost come alongside them and say, you're doing great, that's really good, keep at it. And if there's something that you see and you think, oh, maybe they could do this, then say that. You say, have you thought about adding this? Or have you thought about trying this? Or if you do it like this is how it will happen. This is what will happen. So you're not like dismissing, but you're encouraging them to play and to experiment, and that it's okay if it doesn't look like how they think it should look in their head.
This is all fantastic advice and information for somebody like me who is thinking about offering paid art lessons. Now, this is something that I have I've kind of thought about, but I've always said to myself, oh, I'm not a teacher, I can't do it. And that's that's the thing that's kind of held me back, because for so many years people have said to me, have you ever thought about offering art lessons? And I'm just like, oh, I'm not a teacher, I couldn't do that. Oh, I only paint in the way I paint, I'm not qualified to teach other people. What would you say to me if I said this to you? For a start, do you think it's important to have formal qualifications to teach art? Or is a passion for it enough?
I don't think you need to have a formal qualification for it. Yeah, I don't think that should stop you. It might give you more confidence, but at the same time, you've created bodies of work. You've created so many paintings that actually it doesn't, I don't think you need to doubt your competency.
And the experience you gain by doing that as well. Like, I've encountered so many problems myself along the way that I've had to solve.
Yes.
And so I can pass on that experience to other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's whether you're willing to pass on that knowledge and whether you think, you want to share that with others. I think you've got to realise that anyone you teach will probably pick up on how you do things and will probably try to imitate you in some way because you're their teacher. So you've got to accept that could, that could happen. And are you comfortable with that?
I think that I would be, because I think only I can really paint like me, because it's coming from my head and my heart and my experiences. So my idea was to teach my style of painting, because people seem to be very interested in knowing exactly how I paint and which techniques I use. And I don't feel really qualified to teach different techniques. I know what I know, so I'm going to try and pass that on, because art has been something that has been such a positive aspect of my life. So what I hope to do by offering lessons is just for other people to experience that joy and that focus. Because as you and I probably both know, art can see you through some really difficult times in your life. It does give you a really positive focus. And so that's something that I would like to pass on. And I think that regarding people copying or, producing work that's similar to mine, well, I think they will do if I'm teaching them how I do things. But I hope that it's going to be like a springboard for them to eventually refine it so it becomes their style.
Yeah, and if you think about it, that is how you learn. You go to imitate, you imitate the masters. When you're, in the schoolwork, you're shown all different types of artists, and sometimes you're told, try and paint this in the style of Cézanne, so you do that. And through doing that, through looking at, the colour palette and through looking at how they apply the paint, what is it that kind of gives that definite style, they learn things themselves. And then as they progress, they then start to take, things that they enjoy or things that work for them and adapt it. So I think you're right in saying you wouldn't be worried about them kind of imitating you to a point.
I think encouraging people to take up art. So say if they choose to take lessons with you because they love your style, or they choose to take lessons with me because they love my style, this gives them that kind of entry into their own world of art, doesn't it?
And more often than not, it's not for them to then go and sell what they create. It's more because they just want to learn, and they enjoy it, and they enjoy being with you as well, the teacher, and enjoy what they're creating. And then they can go back to their world, and they've got now a few skills that they can engage with their environment and look around them and then kind of draw that down, and they've got something to remember it by. And I often find people say that to me. They'll have little messages saying, I've just looked at all of your sketches or your postcards, and it's really encouraged me to go now and draw my environment.
That's lovely, isn't it, when that happens?
And that's just through sharing my work. Because you can teach in so many different ways, and maybe you don't realise that you also passively teach as well. So I'm sure you are teaching people already, and you don't even realise that people are learning from you and your practice and through what you share. And a great example of that is also through YouTube. By having a YouTube account,
I was then going to say that actually.
You are actually teaching already, because you're sharing your knowledge, and you've already got tutorials on there where, and you might not think they are tutorials, but doing step by step, or how I paint on my pebbles, that is teaching. And it may not be the formal way of teaching, but it's still teaching. And
do you know, it's funny, it's because I've been doing YouTube and doing these little like mini tutorials, a much smaller version of what I'm actually planning to offer, that I realized, actually, you know what, I think I could do this. Because if I'm able to do it in a 5 or 10 minute video, and people are contacting me and saying, thank you for this, you've really encouraged me next time I'm out to, to say collect some pebbles or sea glass or whatever it is, and have a go myself. And it's really getting me back into art. And that is such a lovely feeling. Because that's part of why we put our art out there in the world. It's not just for us. It's not just because we're, selling paintings. That's a part of it. But it's also to encourage and inspire other people. That's becoming a much larger part of what I do. And I also receive a lot of comments and messages on Instagram saying this as well. And it gives me such a good feeling every single time that somebody has perhaps taken up art or gone back to painting, having left it for a few years, because they see what you're doing, and it's really lovely.
Yeah. So I think, you say, shall I teach? Well, you already are. You already are teaching.
I just need to do it in a slightly more structured fashion. One thing that I was thinking about while we were talking that I thought I would ask you about, I don't know how, whether you want to go in depth about this or just give us a general idea, is how did you decide on the pricing of the sketch walks and the workshops and so on? Yeah,
well, it is a tricky one. I think I just looked at what else was on offer around my area, and you might find this varies on where you live. But, I was looking at what was around my area and what people could get, So for a sketch walk is 2 hours with me. You get a sketchbook and you get use of artist materials. And at the moment it's priced at £25 per person, and I am normally just accepting 2 people. So as in minimum of 2 people. So I know that I'm going to definitely cover my costs, and also obviously make some money on top of that. But you just have to really look at, I guess, the value that you're bringing, and make sure that you are covering your costs as well as paying yourself.
Yeah, you need to think about this, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, doing a sketch walk as well, I don't have to obviously pay for the hire of a building or a space. And that's another thing that I've looked at when I run my workshops. I've been running them in coffee shops rather than in a traditional hall or something that I hire.
That's a great idea, because you're keeping your overheads lower, aren't you?
But I'm also building a relationship with the coffee shop that I'm working with, and I will give them a percentage of my sales so that they're getting something. Also, all the people who come along normally will buy drinks or snacks.
Yes, so it's a great situation for both of you, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there are lots of different ways you can do it, but obviously you've got to work it out yourself and make sure you're comfortable with what you're asking for. I often find as well, so I also run something called Drink and Draw, which is like my sketch party that I was doing online. That was very more informal, low-key. It wasn't really a massive me teaching in depth. It was more bringing together a group of people. They can chat, they can drink tea, coffee, and then we will do drawing as well. But it was more like timed exercises. So for that kind of thing, I'm not going to be charging as much for, say, like a more in-depth 2.5 hour ink workshop on flowers. You've got to work out that price point and make sure that, I guess, you are covering the use of your materials as well. Yeah, you have to find your resources. So I will buy in bulk my sketchbooks from a company who works with education. And so my cost price, I get a better deal than if, say, I'm going down to my arts shop and buying RRP prices.
Yeah, so that's good advice. You have to take all of this into consideration because obviously you want to be making as much money as you possibly can from this to make it worth your while doing it. So yeah, all of these different factors have to be taken into consideration.
And also, like, I guess if someone's asked you to do a workshop for them as well, really look at the recommendation for prices for running workshops, because they again vary, but I do try to look at I think it's Artist Newsletter. They've got some good resources on how much you should charge for a day rate or a half day rate for running workshops for others. And yeah, you really need to make sure that you know what's being expected of you and whether you are expected to bring all of the materials, and that should be then a cost, an added expense on top of the fee that they're going to be paying you, because otherwise you find that all of the money that they're giving you is all gone on just you buying materials for them, and that isn't then paying for your time or for what you're able to offer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is all fantastic advice, and I think anyone who was considering teaching, I think you've really had so much experience with this, and you've very generously shared a lot of information as well. One thing, I think the final question, I just am curious as to which do you prefer? Do you prefer sketch walks, in-person workshops, or online remote teaching? If you just had to do one, which one would it be and why?
That's a hard question. But I love being able to teach, I guess, in any way. But if I had to pick just one, it would have to be the sketch walks. There's nothing that beats actually being able to go outside with someone and take them around the environment and show them everything that you love looking at and get them to draw, and get them then to get that excitement, and then you see it in their faces and they're like, "Oh, I just managed to draw this," and they feel and it's just, there's nothing that beats that, to see that and see also what they've created, and then them saying at the end, "Oh, I'm so glad I've got this sketchbook. I can now go on and I can draw other things now on my holiday or on my time out," and that just gives me a lot of joy to hear that.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, it encourages people to get outside, get some exercise, get out in nature, and all stuff that we need to be doing a bit more of, really.
Thanks so much, Natasha, for asking me all those questions.
It was a pleasure. It was quite interesting to do it this way around, where I'm the one asking more of the questions and just listening to your answers, and I really enjoyed that.
So Natasha, what are we going to be talking about next episode?
We're going to be talking about the advice we would give our younger selves.
Brilliant. Looking forward to that one.
So am I. This should be an interesting one.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Do you teach or facilitate workshops? It would be great to hear how you share your knowledge with others. As always, you can find us on YouTube, searching Creative Catchup, or Instagram, which is @creative_catchup. Until next time, stay creative, keep sharing your work, and we'll speak to you again soon.